What up, Doc?
On this edition of Ultrasound,
Are you guys ready to slam?
25 years in the mosh pit.
I want to see the biggest circle whirlwind pits.
Enter at your own risk.
Hells yeah, I'm gonna mosh tonight.
In the last 2.5 decades, the mosh pit has evolved from a site of semi-organized hardcore mayhem to a colorful backdrop for car commercials.
It's a car, crowd surfing. Like, come on, you know?
And as more and more fans get in the pit, it's become an increasingly dangerous place.
There's a whole level of people underneath that crowd right now that are getting trampled.
Add sex to the already violent mosh pit scene, and the results can be disturbing and deadly. In the next 60 minutes, you'll see the birth of the slam dance, the explosive growth of a once obscure phenomenon,
We got a new extreme sport.
the mosh backlash,
And we publicly take a stand against moshing.
and of course, some of the sickest stage dives of all time. We'll also examine the intellectual roots of the mosh. Well, maybe not. Ultrasound, the social history of the mosh pit. The lights go down, the band steps out on stage, and a ritual begins that nobody can completely explain.
There's this whole sort of tension that just kind of rises.
You can smell it, you can taste it. You know, it's like that opening shot on The Wizard of Oz where everything starts getting pulled in. And
The audience parts like the Red Sea, and then there's a circle that's constantly revolving.
nothing's more exciting than nothing looks cooler than just like a sea of people jumping up and down like this.
It looked like an ocean of just bodies all in unison jumping up and down like this. It's like, oh man, undescribable. You gotta see it.
You ever see like a flock of birds or a school of fish where all of a sudden they're all doing the same thing? And you wonder, how the hell did they know to do that at the same time? Well, that's what a pit's like.
What's going on in a pit? What is really going on?
That depends on whom you ask. In any case, it's more than just music.
The geeks, the freaks, you know, it's like the stoners and the rockers and the punkers. Makes them feel like they fit in. That's what it's there for.
It's a bonding, really. It's a real kind of tribal expression of what the music does to you. Unless you're actually in it, you can't really relate.
You're kind of like one when you're in that pit.
There's something in your life, parents, school, job, girlfriend, whatever, that is causing you frustration and it's pent up. So you go to the pit and you're like, ah!
Go to a show and really, really just get it out and become part of a group.
You join with the energy from everyone else in the pit. You feel bodies up against you. You're forcing yourself to constantly stay on your feet.
The pit also satisfies the occasional human need to get a little crazy.
It's like a football game, you know what I'm saying? Everybody gets hurt, it's real aggressive, but it's a release of pent-up energy, you know? That's how you do it. There really is, you know, it's a full contact sport.
Like, I just gotta get something out. Hey, bang my head against the wall. You know, that there's like somebody else feeling like you feeling, and y'all energy is just bouncing off each other. Boom! Yeah, I feel you.
Have a nice bump on the head, be souvenir at the concert.
You're getting all into it. Yeah, you're like, dude, this was dope. You go back and tell your friends, dude, I bucked somebody. You get knocked on your butt, you get back up like, yeah, you know?
I got my glasses broken, bloody nose, got my tongue ring knocked out. Yeah, you go right back in.
Abandoning all thoughts of precaution and safety to do something really awesome that's really moved by the music.
You don't have to know how to dance. You don't have to have no rhythm, or just get out there and just lose it.
I'm very serious about getting kicked in the head and enjoying it very much.
It's still brutal. It's still crazy. I mean, the kids are losing their minds, but the last thing they want to do is hurt each other, man. They just want to have fun. They just want to do their thing.
The various nuances of each pit are most clearly seen from the stage.
You got circular pits, like everybody moves in one direction. Then you got that maniac dangerous. You got the two guys holding each other. And you got the big fat guy in the middle to trying to destroy everybody.
I've observed the happy pit, say a Green Day show, and the ugly pit, Pantera show, and the psychology of those two pits. But the spirit of the pit is not an ugly one.
Mosh pits also have a purpose of sorts. They're a way of saluting the band, an alternative form of applause.
It gets us off on stage to see that crowd just going whack like that, and we start going off even harder.
If your music's really good, they'll mosh to it.
To me, that's what a show is, that energy, you know, coming back from the band to the people.
Like, they ain't gonna mosh unless they feel the music.
It makes playing a song that you might have been playing for, 2 years straight on the road, just like it gives it life, and it gives it life for you to be able to
play it and just, you know, give it 110%.
One thing that can get in the way of that band and fan energy exchange is seats.
Get up and let's go crazy! Push it up!
Seats in rock and roll just don't mix. It's not right.
It's hard to move around when you got a fold-up chair in your ass.
We hate playing with seats.
Yeah.
Seats, man.
Hate it.
1, 2, 3, come on!
We don't want to sit there and entertain you.
Kind of destroys the vibe. No matter how hard you want to go off in a seated area, you really can't because your knees are hitting the other person's seat in front of you.
The seats are dangerous. The seats are very dangerous.
Especially if they're not bolted down.
You got a general admission thing going on. There's no room for sitting down. Everybody got to rock.
All y'all sitting down right here, why don't y'all go back there and let the in the back come up here? Get the up. Get in the pit and try to love someone!
For veteran moshers, there's a set of unspoken rules that governs pit behavior.
Talk about mosh pit etiquette. You know, don't do anything to anybody else in the pit that you wouldn't want done to yourself.
If you are in the pit trying to love someone, bang, knock somebody down, help them back up.
If you fall down in the mosh pit and you're moshing out there, somebody's going to be able to be there to help you up.
If someone's being really rough, nudge him and say, hey, mellow out.
If you throw punches in the pit, we're coming for you, and there's nothing you can do about it.
If you were 106 pounds, you could jump from the second speaker. If you were my weight, you don't do that, because that's the etiquette, because you don't want to kill anybody.
Beat each other up and take care of each other at the same time.
There's like a method to the madness in there.
I was on the Saturday Night Live show when Fear played, and that was the first time America ever saw anything like that on national TV.
Let the bodies hit the floor, let the bodies hit the floor, let the bodies hit the
I don't know, maybe it's been around forever and we're just now calling it the mosh pit, like in the tribal days where they'd like dance around the fire.
Hey, whatever happened to the term slam dance? I actually miss it.
Today, mosh pits are as integral a part of the concert-going experience as $35 t-shirts. A new generation of fans may not even remember when ramming, slamming, and stage diving weren't all standard operating behavior.
We're pretty young, so like, when I first started going to concerts as a teenager, moshing was like the norm.
Every show that I've gone to in my life, there's been a giant pit.
But there was a time before body surfing and slamming became a staple of arena rock, when the pit was still the purview of a punk subculture.
The whole phenomenon, I think, started as a reaction to dances like, you know, the bump and the hustle. Those kind of really formalized things that punks just had no use for.
By the late 70s, you had a reaction to all this stuff going on in pop culture, and that was called punk. And punk happened 77 to 1980.
I am an anti-Christ. I am an anarchist.
Bands like the Sex Pistols, the Ramones, and the Clash gave 70s rock a much-needed jolt of adrenaline, and a new kind of dancing arose in response to it.
Punk had its own unique dance, and that was the pogo. And the pogo was where you jumped up and down. It was kind of like a fun, frivolous thing.
Hardcore, a faster and even more intense punk variant, was probably inevitable.
You get this escalating level of violence and aggression, not just in the music, but on the dance floor.
The hardcore dance was the slam dance. Hardcore punk was about being dangerous, and the dance reflected that.
The early days of slam dance is almost really epitomized by the Circle Jerks logo. They have that hardcore kid with the strut like this, and I mean, that is it, you know?
When it was starting, people were trying to figure out how to dance to this music. People started, you know, going in a circle. And it was sort of like that was how we figured out how to dance to it.
Some people call it slamming, and some people call it pogoing, and some call it the skank. But I just call it dancing. This one, they just call this more or less a slam. It's just keep going in a circle, keep moving your arms and stuff, and just bouncing off people, pushing them away. Then you'll see people stepping out through the crowd like this, pushing people off them as they bounce into them. Just try not to get out of that circle, because if you do, you get out of beat.
It was much more intense because the dancing was more of an art form. It was like beautiful to watch. There was skanking and like dudes riding around on your shoulders, creepy crawling, where you just like got squatted down real low and just creepy crawled around.
They didn't even go in a circle at CBGB's all that much. A lot of times it was just people kind of standing in their spot and, like Sick of It All says, demonstrating their style.
These kids were like breakdancing, you know, at the same time they were getting into hardcore. There was like certain individuals that could like really dance, and like no one else could dance like that person.
Some classic hardcore dance styles of that period, real or fake, you decide, were memorably cataloged in a 1995 video by the New York hardcore band Sick of It All.
We came up with different names and we were like, look at that guy, he dances like a gorilla. Let's put that in the video and make it different.
The first instance of slam dancing can't be precisely nailed down, but everyone pretty much agrees where the trend started.
Slam dancing originated here in Los Angeles. When I first saw the punk rock movement, I felt that it was very, very important to document it for history's sake.
Penelope Spheeris' seminal 1981 documentary of the LA punk scene, The Decline of Western Civilization, captured some of the earliest images of hardcore pits and spread them across the country.
I saw The Decline of the Western Civilization, that documentary, which blew me away. There was only a few people that even knew about the stage diving and the slamming.
Some people say they remember the day that California-style hardcore behavior finally made it to New York City.
It was Saturday, March 14th, 1981, was when slam dancing was first spotted in New York City. Black Flag played.
That one stands out. I think it was the first time they came to New York, and maybe the first time they came to the East Coast, so all these people came up from D.C. because they were really excited.
The first song that Black Flag launched into, these kids immediately started slamming. You know, pushing, shoving, smacking, punching even.
And there was all dudes. They were like basically fighting with each other, jumping off the stage onto each other.
Jumping boots first.
Boots first, onto each other, and watching from the balcony being like, wow, something I don't want any part of it. There's nothing punk about that.
The entire gig was just marred with fistfights. It was an absolutely ugly thing.
In the small clubs where it all began, stage diving and slam dancing were a spontaneous and very physical way for bands and their fans to connect.
In the 70s, it was like the altar of the rock star. There was the audience, and then there was the brilliant musician playing his guitar solo.
Punk rock was always all about is when you went and saw a show, you and the band were one, you know, and that's what's so incredible. It's not like, you know, Aerosmith or some rock band who's up there going, look at me, I'm doing my lead.
Hardcore was about the band and the kids are equal. And that's why slam dancing was okay. That's why stage diving was okay, because you were really at one with the band.
And stage diving got really, really popular, and a lot of bands really, really tolerated it. But after a while, it got to be so prevalent and such a pain in the neck to the bands, because people would jump up on stage and bang into guitars and untune them. And any band that really wanted to play well started to get annoyed by these stage divers.
Stage diving and slam dancing made their national TV debut in 1981 when the late comic and CBGB habitué John Belushi and writer Michael O'Donoghue invited the LA punk band Fear to perform on Saturday Night Live.
Belushi got Fear on the show.
Ladies and gentlemen, Fear!
As a matter of fact, I was the first dude to dive off the stage at that show. They cut it off the air, but we kept going in the studio. And that was the first time America ever saw anything like that on national TV.
Nevertheless, slam dancing remained pretty much an underground phenomenon for the next several years.
For about a half a decade, there was a very pure tribal underground of the hardcore movement. And it stayed within itself for a long time.
Then, as hardcore began an inevitable cross-fertilization with the exploding new metal scene, the music was transformed, and so was the pit.
In the mid-'80s, there was what was known as the crossover. And the crossover was when heavy metal kids and non-punk kids joined the scene.
The crossover era of DRI, that was some insane pitting.
They say they were hardcore bands, but if you closed your eyes, it just sounded like a metal band, you know, playing metal riffs.
85, 86 bands, that was, I think, really when Metallica started to kick it into gear, and I mean, they were a direct derivative of hardcore punk. You know, they just went more the metal route.
We probably emulated the same dance, but gave it our own seal of approval.
In the 80s, I think there was probably a lot of the punk guys hated the metal guys, and a lot of the metal guys thought the punk guys were oh fools, yeah, you know? Absolutely.
Moshing changed at that point. The hardcore kids were, probably a lot more outcast types than the metal kids, and they had perhaps a bit stronger sense of community. The metal kids were probably more aggressive and not rooted in that sense of community and that philosophy. They were just there to, brutalize people.